Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. In today's piano tip video, I want to address the question, how much should you practice the piano and how to practice the piano? Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already done so, and make sure to check the notifications bell to never miss a new video. Also, if you found this tip helpful, make sure to hit the like button. So one of the most common questions I get from my students, and especially their parents, is how much they should practice, how much time they should spend at the piano every single day. And it's one of those questions that you can't really quantify because that's only half of the success. This video is obviously aimed at beginners, intermediate students, or people who play piano as a hobby. If you're a professional pianist or a very advanced pianist at university or conservatoire level, obviously it's not for you, because then piano is your entire life and you're going to practice for the entire day or most of the day. But if you just started playing the piano, or if you're an intermediate student, or if you're practicing for your grade exams, or you want to get into university, then this might be very helpful to you. So when we practice piano, there are two things that really matter. One is the actual physical motion of repetition, of playing the same patterns, moving the fingers, because the more you move it, the easier it's going to get, and the faster you can do things, and the easier you can do things. However, I think this is only around 40% of the success. The bigger chunk of your effort should be the brain and being mindful, being very aware of what you're doing. To give you an example, I actually have two students who are doing grade 5 at the moment, and one of them spends 1 hour every single day practicing piano, and she puts a timer there, and the other student maybe practices 45 minutes every 2 days. The student who practices 1 hour every single day is still making the same mistakes week after week and is not doing as good as the other one who is practicing 45 minutes every second day. And to be very clear here, there's no difference in talent. Both of them are equally talented. They're very smart kids, and they understand what I'm saying. The problem with the student who is practicing 1 hour every single day is that she thinks that time is only what matters. So basically she puts a timer when she starts practicing, and when the 60 minutes are up, she stands up and leaves. And probably that's because her mom wants her to practice an hour every day. And what I'm trying to say to her is that if you practice 20 minutes very consciously, aware of your mistakes, and if you think about the things that I told you during the lesson, what are the things you need to work on, what do you need to correct, what you need to improve on, then those 20 minutes are going to be a lot more efficient than just repeating the same thing for an hour, repeating the same mistakes because you're not even aware where you make that mistake, you don't care, you just repeat because you have to play for an hour. So this is obviously quite an extreme example of how practice can go really wrong, but it applies to everybody. When you practice, if you're really concentrated and you're paying attention to what you need to work on, you're paying attention to the small detail in the score, you're paying attention to the style, to the feel of the song, then you're going to be a lot more efficient in a much shorter time than if you practice for very long periods without thinking about anything, just repeating the same patterns all over again. So this is my biggest advice to anybody who practices, that it's not really the time or the amount of time that matters, but your concentration and your awareness and dedication to how you practice. So quality versus quantity, and definitely quality is going to win. Now, this doesn't mean, of course, that you should not practice for more than once a week. There still should be regularity in your practice, because the more frequently you practice, the more chance your brain has to reinforce what you learned in the previous practice session. You also have to bear in mind that concentration kind of is a downward curve. So the longer you practice for, the less you can stay concentrated. And this varies for everybody. Some students or people can sit for 2 hours and be really in the zone and focus on music. Other people can play for 20 minutes and then start daydreaming or thinking about what's going on in the other room, or they have to go eat something or drink something, then come back, do another 10 minutes, and then they feel like, okay, my brain is full again, and they have to go away again. So it really depends on your personality and your concentration skill. If you feel that you are one of those who cannot really concentrate for more than 20 minutes, then do not practice for more than 20 minutes. Do maybe 20 minutes in the morning, then 20 minutes in the evening, and try to practice as frequently as you can. If you are blessed with eternal concentration and you can sit for 2 hours and really be in the zone and you don't feel like your brain is getting tired, then by all means sit down and practice for 2 hours. But again, frequency is really important. So even if you practice 2 hours, try to practice every single day or every second day at least. The longer gap you have between your practice sessions, the more you're going to forget and you have to relearn what you did in your previous practice session. So frequency, repetition is the best, and mindfulness is going to make it far more efficient. Now, a couple of other tips that are not to do with time, but the way we practice. If you are preparing for an exam, for example, and you have to do your scales, you have to do your technical exercises, you have to do your pieces, and you maybe also want to work a little bit on theory and sight reading, then if you practice for 20 minutes, it's impossible to do all of those in 20 minutes. So depending on how much time you have to practice, break it down into smaller chunks. So for example, if you have 20 minutes to practice twice a day or every single day once, then Monday, work on one piece for 20 minutes, the next day work on another piece, on the next day work on your scales, on the next day work on a third piece, and so on. So don't try to do too much in a very short amount of time, because the less time you spend on something, the less work you can do, and it's basically just a repetition, a playthrough instead of an actual practice session. I believe that any piece above like around grade 2, grade 3 level should be practiced for at least 15 minutes. If you practice a longer piece for 5 minutes or 10 minutes, it's really just a playthrough, it's not a practice session. Now, when it comes to more advanced levels like grade 7, grade 8, and you have 5 or 10 page pieces, don't always go from the beginning all the way to the end. When you have longer pieces and more difficult, challenging repertoire to work on, select sections that are more difficult or more challenging, even if it's only 4 bars, and just practice those 4 bars for 20 minutes, and then maybe in the very end do a playthrough from the beginning to the end, just to kind of recap the entire piece. But working in smaller sections is always much more efficient than trying to go back to the beginning. This is again something that you see with beginners. When they play a piece, as soon as they make a mistake, they try to jump back to the very beginning of the piece and go again, wasting so much time on the bars that they can already do really well and not spending enough time on the bars which need more work. So that's why I always tell everybody that practice in small sections and practice the sections that need the most work, and then at the very end of your practice session do a recap and play the piece from the beginning all the way to the end. Another thing that's quite important is a warm-up. Now when it comes to piano playing, if you're a very young beginner, you don't need to do such a big warm-up because you're not going to play anything really fast, you're not going to play anything very technically challenging or demanding. Most pieces at around grade 1 or before grade 1 are very easy and the hands are capable of doing them without any kind of warm-up. This of course doesn't mean that you don't need to do any warm-ups, you can still do a couple of scales, 5-note scales or finger exercises just to get your hands moving, and these exercises are also very good because you don't have to read music while you do them, you can just do them from memory. But if you are a more advanced student and you're playing a lot of difficult pieces, especially very fast pieces, then always do at least 5 minutes of warm-ups, scales, arpeggios, or whatever you use for your warm-ups, finger exercises to get the hands moving, because it's just like running. You can't run a marathon if you don't stretch before. So these were my tips for practicing, on how much to practice, how to practice, and how to break down your time for your practice sessions. If you found this helpful, let me know in the comments. If you have any more questions, you can also put those into the comments. Thank you very much for watching, and as always, subscribe for more.